And we're live. Hey guys, welcome
There we
back to the
go.
DLC podcast where we talk games, movies, all things in between. I'm Isaac,
I'm Juicy.
and today we have an interesting topic, as you can tell from the title. Is this the worst console generation? I won't say ever, but in recent memory. Is that fair? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Right? I think that's fair too. That being said, let's just sink our teeth into it. So normally, okay, first I want to clarify. Like normally we don't record this early, but I feel like our VODs do better anyways. So I don't see no issue doing an early stream. And plus,
Yeah, yeah.
it just be like that sometimes. It just be like that sometimes. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Juice, tell them there ain't nothing wrong with that.
Ain't nothing wrong with it, guys. You want to hear from us on a Monday? We're here to make sure that if you had a bad day, it's about to get worse. Let's
Exactly.
go. Like,
All right.
oh man.
So not to sink too deep into other topics, but I saw the did you hear about the end of the Phil Spencer interview?
I watched this Phil Switzer interview with
Okay.
Rooster Teeth.
No, it's kind of funny.
Oh, well, I know, but they're owned by Rooster Teeth. Yeah,
Oh yeah, I guess technically yeah, but
but yeah. Actually,
yeah.
Brent over at Work in Progress. Shout out. Sent me that. Like first thing. Gosh, I don't remember what day. I just remember I was like, hey, I get to listen to something while doing trainings. So
Yeah, so this that kind of we already had this idea, but him doing that kind of solidified this topic. So let's just make some clarifications, right? I like Xbox. I grew up on Xbox. Well, granted. As a kid, I grew up on Sony and Nintendo. In my teens and 20s, I was Xbox. Until now that I got a PC, right?
hmm.
And I respect every company in their own right. And we just want to say this too. Nintendo's not a part of this conversation for the simple fact they're still in last gen. Right?
Yeah, they didn't put a horse in the race technically. I mean, they're still producing games, obviously, and the Switch is a phenomenal system,
Yeah.
Uh, but they didn't put a. If we're going off FTC explanations, that's not Gen 9, even with OLED. So
And that being said, I feel like Nintendo wouldn't take that as an insult because though they're still Gen 8, they're still performing really, really well.
oh yeah.
And I feel like you mentioned this. We feel like Nintendo already saw that this generation was gonna suck, so they didn't feel the need to try to play catch up or tag along as the other two did. Right?
I mean, it's also not a part of their business model. Now we're going to get into more detail on that when we're talking about a series that's coming up soon. Look out for those announcements.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that Nintendo has been focusing on, it seems, in the last few years is just the nostalgia point. They've always had a hand in that, if you will, re-releasing older games, setting up systems and emulators on, especially when the Switch came out, to where you could use a lot of where you could play a lot of different things like the Nintendo emulator, the Super Nintendo emulator, now with the N64 and the Game Boy emulators that are coming out, that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
dope. So that being
Mm-hmm.
said, it might not be that they saw that as much as it's just what's on what they were focusing.
Right.
They're not going to sit here and try to compete with Xbox and Sony when it comes to putting out new content, these faster paced games. Their system itself wouldn't be able to run it.
Yeah.
They've already been talking
So
about Call of Duty going to Switch. Why would that do that when it couldn't even run
mm,
it? That
right.
would be a concern. I do agree with it.
Well,
And even more
COD Mobile will work fine on that console.
yeah, but like a Call of Duty, if a new, let's say, Black Ops 5 is released, 6 technically, but like comes out and it's like hitting every freaking like major Gen 9 console, mark,
Yeah. Well,
what do you think it could run that? I don't think
no,
so.
no, 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 no. So let's just focus. I want to hit Xbox first.
Yeah.
And so one of the things Philly Spence said right off the bat was he admitted they lost the most important generation with the one and PS4, and he also was like, Starfield's not going to make people sell their PS5s and buy Xboxes, which the goal would be for people to have both Xbox and a PS5, like not necessarily have one or the others. But I felt like first off with that statement is a losing mentality, which I feel was planned just to help with the argument to get the acquisition. Because with this, it makes Microsoft look vulnerable, like they suck.
Interesting thought. Interesting thought. So I had a kind of, let's be fair, a rabbit hole theory, you know.
Yeah,
It's like, what if Redfall was destined to fail, you know,
yeah,
just to make way for Starfield to be that much better. Like to the point where if Starfield comes out, it's like there like even if it has some issues, it's not the Redfall release, you know?
yeah, exactly.
Like it's the only good thing to come from it, you know?
Yeah, so
So
so just
so
I don't
you're
want
but
the,
you're saying that this goes above just Bethesda games. You're saying this has to do with the acquisition, possibly.
I would say it makes them look like they're incapable of producing good quality games, unlike Sony and Nintendo, which goes with the argument and saying that they basically said they're inferior to both companies, which they've stated. And the reason why I'm bringing this up and why I think it's the worst console generation is because back during the 360 and PS3 era, they were at each other's throats, right? That was back when Microsoft cared about console sales. So they brought out bangers after bangers. It wasn't until the very end where PS3 started getting better exclusives and 360 started kind of like, you know, not producing as much quality as they once did, but they still had enough traction to where like when the Xbox One got announced, people were hyped because they're like, we saw what you did with the 360. Now let's see what you can do with the one, and it botched it, right? And Philly Spence comes in, he makes all these promises, these guarantees, he brings back backwards compatibility, talking about they're making new games, they acquired new developers, but nothing came of it, right? And people figured, it's the Xbox One. It was already in the grave. So the Series X, which is his baby, right? Because the Xbox One wasn't his. The Series X and S and Game Pass are his. So people were like, okay, he'll take care of his baby.
Yeah.
Hasn't been the case. Halo, a flagship title, delayed, still died, right? Um,
Mhm.
Starfield gets delayed multiple times, right? They announce games that hit the nostalgia bone to get people hyped, knowing those games aren't gonna be ready for another 5 years or so. He makes promises that there'll be a new AAA release, exclusive release, every 4 months throughout I think it was like every 4 months or once a month for 12 months. One of those, right? Doesn't
Mhm.
happen. Doesn't happen. Which I feel like Redfall fell captive to that because he needed a game to come out now, or else he'll look even more like a liar, no matter how badly it botched.
Fair.
So, and like I said, even
That's
though
all.
I have that theory, that may not be the case of him trying to look vulnerable, but it's one of those things like this is the first time. Okay, I'm gonna try to say this like in my head it makes sense. I'm gonna try to say it. This is the first time where I see a gaming company not try to identify as a gaming company. Like I know he's talking about he's for the gamers and this and that. But like Nintendo are proud of their games. They take care of their games. They don't care about what anybody says. They're producing quality. And Sony, for the most part, is pretty cutthroat in regards to like, oh, your game flopped, dissolved. That you're
Good.
like you're getting canned, dissolved. Whereas Xbox is like, nah, guys, hey, I mean, we have games, but we're all about the chill vibes over here. Do what you want. Like, there's no drive. I feel like the environment. I'm all for a good, relaxing environment that doesn't make developers have to crunch. Like, have like God of War. People that see their families for a while. But you saw the outcome of that, right? And I'm like, so Microsoft has the finances to actually afford to get more developers to prevent people from crunching while also keeping like keeping the quality in check. Like most developers are tied down to what they have, right? Like they're limited to, let's say, like 30 members on like one game. They're gonna have to crunch. There's a lot that has to be done. There's not that many of them to do it. But what if you doubled that force or tripled that force? Then you don't have to crunch as much. But now Microsoft is known for having terrible management in all parts of Microsoft. Like, so I understand Philly Spence took the punch to the chin, but it's actually the people beneath him that are botching everything. But it goes back to him because he has a really laid back attitude. It's
Yeah.
just to give an example for you sports fans out there. In the early 2000s, people literally said being part of the Cowboys was like joining a golf club. There was no threat of losing your job. You were fine. Like there was no drive. Like you're just there to collect a paycheck. There wasn't a winning mentality, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where Xbox is right now. Like, hey man, we're just lounging. We're just a couple buds, making a game here and there. Now I don't know the full story, but that's what it looks like to me. Because like I said, Nintendo ain't gonna let you mess up their games. Like they legit restarted Metroid Prime 4 because they don't like the way it was going. They're like, we'll take the L on those finances just because it's not up to our standard. Sony,
Yeah.
Sony, Days Gone sold pretty okay. It was still kind of like a flop, but it sold well enough to where you would think they would have got a sequel. But no, the Sony's like, nah, it ain't. No, dissolved. Like get out of here.
Yeah, I'm about to say, "Get this off of my screen," you know?
So, so with Xbox, they don't have that drive. They haven't had that drive since the 360. So with Philly
Okay.
Spence, with Xbox One, you still had hope, and it flooded through the era. Whereas the Series X, you kind of had to hope again. But once Halo got delayed, and like they were okay showing what Halo looked like before it got delayed, like it got delayed because the fans, right? I'm sure they would have released that with no issue. So I'm just like, okay, you guys are struggling bad. Like this
Well,
is
I do think that part of the issue with their strategy, and I think he did address it, though, it's hard not to think that big businesses are playing a game of chess that we can't even see, you
right,
know?
right.
Like, we think we know chess, and suddenly, like, they're playing with pieces we've never even considered, like, doing moves we've never even thought of. Um, and I say that to say that, like, he did bring up the fact that all they're doing is buying these people, giving them a paycheck, and letting them do their thing, you know? And now they need to start pushing their resources early on, right?
Mhm.
Is that it was Redfall the sacrificial lamb for them to say, "Okay, now Microsoft's stepping in," and then suddenly the quality of games get better? And it's like, see, it's not just the fact that we bought them, it's our
Yeah,
influence that benefited them. Is it? I don't know, but definitely what we've been wanting to see is Microsoft actually get in there and do something. This hands-off approach has led to a lot of issues, and I really hope it's not calculated, because if so, that's disrespectful to the gamers, in my opinion,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But letting, like, 343 do everything they wanted with Halo Infinite, turn that into a heaping pile. Like, bro, and Redfall's no excuse, or no different, I guess. I guess the difference for that is they had one particular setup in mind for how Redfall was supposed to come from Arcane Austin, and when they were bought out, they did come in and initially say, "Yo, stop production of, like, the PlayStation stuff. Stop, we're doing this Xbox. You do it this way," And suddenly there was a little more gumption, if you will, to get it done. And so one could say that, but ultimately I'd put it in the same category of, you still didn't produce. And you didn't produce because you were paid the money, but you weren't given the influence,
Yeah.
Like, I feel like in order for us to truly gauge if these acquisitions, if these IPs that Microsoft have are going to be good for them, is if we start seeing them roll up the sleeves and like go back to the 360 days. Like, bring us games that pulled in masses, not just solo players. Like games that I wanted to play with my friends. But even to this
Yeah.
day, I'd go back. Like I'm talking about playing Halo Wars right now with some friends. Like, left,
Dude,
might as
Halo Wars
well,
is
bro.
awesome. Halo Wars 2 is awesome.
Yeah, like Halo Wars 2 is what we're downloading. We're gonna be playing that. My thing is like, bro, but we've been playing the old Halos. We going back, I'm running through Gears 2 with one of my friends. We're
Yeah.
just we're having a lot of fun with older games. Oh, and Dead or Alive too. We're playing that too. And Killer Instinct. Killer Instinct, I mean, that's not necessarily their IP. Well, it's their IP now, but like we're playing all these games that the classics that just got you, having a good time with them. Let's go back to that. But in order to go back to that, it's Microsoft influence. It's like, yo, bro, this is what
Yeah.
we're wanting.
Yeah. I
That's my
thought
thought.
so. Zombie says I thought the games of 2023 have been amazing. They have been. They have been. That's not exactly what we're talking about right now. Oh, it kind of is. So I feel like let's touch on Sony now, right? And then we'll conclude with everything. But just to say that, like, yes, 2023 has been good for games, but the point where we're at now with in regards to games, I feel like should have been how the console generation should have started. Like these consoles should have not come out when they did. They could have waited. They didn't have to come out now, right? I mean, now would have been a good time to announce or release the consoles when distribution and all that was already settled for the most part, right? Or,
Mhm.
but with Sony, they hit the ground running as Sony does, right? And my so I don't really have much issue with them per se. It just and what they did is what most console generations do in general. So I don't know why a lot of people were tripping out about it, but it's how it carries over in the sense of they said a lot of these games are not going to be on PS4. They're PS5 exclusive.
Mhm.
Games come out, they're both PS4 and PS5, right? Which for me, I don't have an issue because you guys sold millions upon millions of PS4s. You still want to cash in on that revenue since people can't get their hands on PS5s and you can't make them fast enough. But let's find out. Let's point out their bangers, all right? So they had The Last of Us 2, right? God of War Ragnarok,
Of course.
of course. Forbidden West,
Mhm.
and I believe that's about sums it up for the new ones. Unless I'm missing any that you know of. Now, some say they have Spider Man. Spider Man's a PS4 game, and they remastered it for the PS5. I don't count that because I don't count recent remasters.
Okay.
Like Last of Us One remaster didn't need it. I felt like personally. I know I have feelings towards that game, but I felt like it was more of a cash grab than anything. Which I mean, most games. I mean, of course, they're business, but those main ones that I named off though were phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
And then, in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, they kind of tailed off at the end. Like I know. Yet what's it called? What's their counter to Forza? Gran
Gran Turismo?
Turismo. Gran Turismo. I heard it did really well until it got like the servers went down because it's an always online game. Um, what else was there? And then you have Forspoken, which that in itself is its own deal.
No, we're talking about, yeah, we're talking this year. That is a problem,
Well, I'm talking
and
about this. I'm talking about this era. I'm talking about this era in general. Like
I was
this.
talking about this era. So that is one thing most PlayStation games don't pass the longevity era or the longevity point for gaming. And I've talked about this with Brent over at Work in Progress. I've talked about this with Jacob a lot. I think I brought it up with you too. Is like there's a life cycle to games. And while Sony games are great when they release on their sales, and then the first 60 to 90 days, they're still doing very well. People are focused on it. But one thing that needs to carry over from that would be a longevity of the game. Like it's keeping on your mind. You're sitting here considering it. You're talking about it. You're seeing videos about it. You're posting videos about it if you're playing in it and stuff like that. And you just don't see that with Sony games. Forbidden West, for instance, you brought up was a phenomenal game, but its hype for Forbidden West died out almost as soon as it released, you know?
Mhm.
And that kind of saddens me because I love that series, you know?
Right.
Uh, so far, the only one that has, I guess, I mean, like, 'cause like Spider-Man, I see every once in a while something about Spider-Man like flipping through the sky, but it's usually put some awesome ambient music, you know?
Yeah.
So other than those, the only thing they've really had that's continued going that I'm still seeing things about is God of War Ragnarok. That to this day, I'll still see the stray video about, which is dope, you know?
Right.
Uh, and that that is the issue that Sony games recently have been having, at least in my perspective, you know, is it doesn't fit that longevity situation, that third stage, you know?
Right.
So it's like, yeah, I mean, like they're good, you'll play them. It's not something I'm gonna go replay. I haven't played them personally, so I won't say I would. I probably wouldn't, you know? And it's not notable enough that people just keep throwing it up there, you know?
Uh-huh.
Uh that could also be the nature of how the games are or what the games are, you know? But like for instance, going back to Forbidden West, you would think a game about fighting mecha dinosaurs would have more like boss fight mecha dinosaur videos out there where they're showcasing just how bamf it is to fight these things, you
Well,
know?
basically, what people are doing with Breath of the Wild, where like they're just doing all
Yeah.
these
Well,
random
so
things.
Breath of the Wild trumps all of those things because I have seen video upon video of different things you can do, of different fights you can do,
Mhm.
different little glitches you can have, you know, that you can make, and you don't even have to break your game, you know, different things like that, and you know, and I'm not putting into like you know consideration like multiplayer games that you're going to always have videos will always change because it's multiplayer. You know, you're going to have sick things happen everywhere. But when it comes to these things, heck, like I'm still seeing Hi-Fi Rush videos. You know, like Hi-Fi Rush videos are still out there, and it's the same levels, the same things I play, but they're hilarious, or they've changed the costume, or they're pointing out some detail. You know, it's like I'm seeing those still, you know?
Right.
And given the same time frame, I lost out even on God of War Ragnarok with that, you know? It's just not what Sony games, at least from my perspective, really do well in, at least in this generation, is the longevity, the third stage of a game's life that keeps its popularity going, you know?
Uh-huh.
Um, that's my perspective on their games. As for their
So
systems, I mean, it is kinda like they couldn't keep up with the production of the PlayStations, that would've been my biggest thing.
yeah.
They didn't really have an answer for scalpers, just like Xbox didn't really have an answer for scalpers, you know?
Mhm.
But I do feel like for people to have still been struggling 2 years after the release of a system, you know, to get the system and I can respect, okay, hey, it's a really good system, you know?
Yeah.
But you should have been able to meet that, you know?
All right. So real quick, Zombie says he's getting
Yeah.
an Xbox Series X next month. It's good to hear. Dead Island 2 has been a very good game. Awesome. We plan on playing
Oh,
that. This generation has been good to me. I mean, the generation isn't bad. It's just not the.
no.
It's just it fails in compared like so with the Series X. My issue is that it's power, most powerful console, most powerful this, most powerful that. Can't run a game at 60. And I
Nope.
know, and personally for me, it's not a big deal when it comes to story-based campaign games, but it's a big deal when you advertise it and then pull it back. Like I thought you had a powerful console. Like, what's the issue here? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And with PS5 is, I feel like they had a storage of games, and they, and in a term, they blew their load pretty early. You know, which was saving
I
them as other exclusives with like
mhm.
with the Final Fantasies amongst. I mean, I know they're working with Konami now for Metal Gear. Like
Oh,
they're see
that's
that.
so
So
cool.
that's what's helping them is these third party exclusives that Xbox is not getting because Xbox like screw third party exclusive. We'll just buy the third party and make them exclusive. Which I'm like, dude,
Like
you're
in person.
like you're not like that's a terrible. In my opinion, that's a terrible way to go do business. You know, because like you can make a partnership with the party that you don't own, and in a way they will be yours, like how Bethesda was. You know, like you said when they were acquired, you're like it's like they're coming home, right?
Mhm.
So it's just the fact that I feel like these games, the consoles, this era could have been delayed at least a year or two. Like get your production up, get all this up. But they were in such a hurry just to put out the new thing first that they should have looked at Nintendo and took Nintendo and took their strategy at heart.
It it's this generation of consoles, like you said, you know, they didn't have enough of production. It could have taken some time and pushed it back, you know, and I think a lot of things would have benefited from that. Another thing though, some just a running theme in this generation is the hype and expectation of the games of these AAA titles that are coming out on both sides when it comes to these two consoles. The hype and what you get are usually under that bar, you know, under that bar of hyper expectation. God of War Ragnarok, no. I'm gonna say that. Like Sony knocked out of the park God of War Ragnarok. Great game, you know.
Right,
It definitely earned its place as the contender to game of the year, you know. Beautiful story. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I personally thought it was pretty dope, you know.
right.
Uh, but on the flip side of it, I mean, it was, and you know, Xbox, I'll give their, you know, Hi-Fi Rush, though different because it was a shadow drop. I'll give you that. Like, it's not something we were all expecting, but definitely was a breath of fresh air to where people were saying, myself included, that this is what we expected with this generation of console gaming. It's great. This is fun. It's fantastic. You know, we're looking forward to everything else. And since God of War Ragnarok, then after that Hi-Fi Rush, or I guess even during the Hi-Fi Rush drop, every game that's come out has had some issue with its release, you know? Something to take away from either the gameplay or the value of it, the aesthetic of it that ultimately hurts your experience with it, you know? Um I mean, we of course we know about Forspoken. We don't got to beat a dead horse with that one, you know. Flip side of it, Redfall. A lot of expectation past Redfall. Like we expected Redfall to at least be decent. That thing got torn apart,
I just want to
and
say
it.
again. I just want to say again. I never said it looked good. I've
No, no,
never
I'm
said it
not
looked
saying.
good.
I'm not saying. I don't think anyone say it was look good. I will. Okay, I will say this. I was very optimistic. I'm like,
Yeah,
bro, I
you and
understand, but you
Jacob
know what?
were.
Maybe it's gonna play. It's gonna be a really fun game, and like we're really hyped for it. It's something that we're considering, all three of us here on the channel, just jumping in and playing. And a
Yeah.
work in progress invited me last, or not last weekend, I believe two or last week sometime, and I wasn't able to make that. But apparently, it was not a good experience. So I was like, oh
Wait,
goodness, you know.
wait. I saw the trailer too. I'm like, this looks trash. And
But
you
it's
know
not
what?
just those two games, you know.
No, no. I mean,
Like
like
good.
like Sony have Forspoken, but I'm like, but they also had Sony has dropped more good games than bad games, whereas Microsoft has dropped
Oh yeah.
Hi-Fi Rush and Forza. But outside of that, their other games were garbage. And um, so like I said, like Sony's not doing anything bad per se. I just feel like they could have stocked up on more games to have a consistent release schedule compared to where they are
I,
now.
yeah.
And then with X, because my thing is, I mean, I'm used to back in the 360 era for new games were dropping left to right, right, and they weren't games that were like, oh, it's just a game, it sucks. No, they were good quality games. And this generation, bro, like it started last generation, but it's amplified this generation. Is that they're fine shipping out broken games?
Uh, and I think our expectations are just a little different nowadays, you know? When the 360 and the PlayStation 2 era was really good. Well, I'm sorry, 360 and PlayStation. What's up this? 360 PlayStation 3 era, you know?
Right.
we still didn't have too many different variations of game. I mean, we had a lot of games to play and choose
Right.
from.
Right. Right.
Some random, some not so random. But like, let's be fair. With the 360 was, it's Gears, it's Halo. You know, with
Or
PlayStation
Gears,
back in the day,
Halo, Call of Duty,
Call of Duty. With PlayStation,
fighting
you were
games.
playing Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy. You were playing well, at one point, Demon Souls really broke out and took over. Dragon Age, um, Dragon's Dogma, I think may have been a 360 game, but like Armored Core, Ace Combat, like they still had their From Software, their different things like that. That's like all these things are still holding strong. They're a little different, but whenever a new game would come out for us to try, for instance, Demon Souls, Demon Souls was not meant to be some game that was supposed to explode. It was just being released as kind of a filler for From
Yeah.
Software,
Right. Right.
waiting for the next big game, and it exploded, and it did so well. And that happens more back in the day when our focus, our fixation, what our experiences are limited to what the hype games are at the time. We didn't have near as much information gathering. We did have the internet, but nowhere near as structured as what we have now. Literal Reddits and subreddits to break down a game, YouTube videos that absolutely break down every gaming experience we could have nowadays. And then the ability for us to, even if we didn't play a game, like let's say I owned a PlayStation, I never had a 360, right? I never played, we'll say I never played Halo, I never played Gears of War. I would only hear about it. I might see some videos, and I might on occasion pick up a controller and play it back in the day. And nowadays, I can watch a streamer play the entire campaign of of Halo Infinite. I can go watch Halo Infinite like multiplayer and see how everything goes.
Man, dude, Halo
And
Infinite. Dude, once you
I'm
got
bringing up Halo Infinite as just a focus, a push around, but you know what I mean. It's like I can sit here and experience everything about the game, sans putting the controller in my hand.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so, like, what is there new? Where could we possibly go to? Hi-Fi part of Hi-Fi Rush's success isn't just the fact that it was shadow dropped. It isn't just the fact that it was like in the Xbox Direct at a time where they were showcasing all their IPs and stuff like that, and you got to play it, and it was pretty awesome. It's also because it was a breath of fresh air because it was so new to everybody. It's an art style we've seen before, playing in a game style that's never had that art style from a developer that's never done a game like this at all.
Right.
And they had collabs with great music. They had a secondary point of music, had very fluid mechanics in the fighting style. It had like all these things that made it this great game. A breath of fresh air, though, because we've played hack and slashes, we played beat 'em ups, we've played rhythm games, we played games that have that kind of cartoony, comic booky style.
Uh huh.
It's not like, but putting it all together was something we had never had before. What I'm saying is it's hard because our expectations right now for AAA games are so refined, if we will, that's had decades to literally just marinate into something so much better. We expect the best every single time. And not only that, we get told it's going to
Well,
be the best
no, for
every
me,
time.
I don't expect the best. I expect the game just to work.
Well, at this point, but I will say at the beginning of this year and even at the end of last year, we were expecting this year to just be this blow up with no
Well,
issues. We
yeah, I
have
mean,
consoles playing like PCs. We have PCs working
if
harder than ever.
if I'm
Go
Philly
ahead.
Spence, I'm telling the Xbox Series X developers and whatnot, or like the guys that run the OS or whatever, be like, look,
Mhm.
just make a feature. People may frown at this, but just hear me out. Make a because it plays 4K, it plays 2K.
Yeah.
Let it play 1080p at a solid 60 or 120. Like, give that option to have it run at a 180. And I know people be like, 180, dude. 180 is enough on Call of Duty. You know, and if you want if you want immersive story based games, then play 4K 30 or sit like if they don't have 60, play like Starfield. I'm sure that's gonna be immersive campaign. So 4K 30, like for me, it doesn't bother me. But give the option for 1080, 60, or 120. Like you have like it is capable of doing that.
Mhm.
So give the console more flexibility as you can with the PC because technically they are PCs.
That's
So
well, that's the other part too. Like the biggest hype around this generation was the fact that the Xbox Series X and S by relation and the PlayStation 5 are the closest to a PC for a console gamer who doesn't want to invest into a
I mean, they
PC.
have. I
I
mean,
mean,
their whole sales pitch was SSD.
yeah, it's I mean, it was definitely the hypest drop anyway because like we are now like to the point where you were seeing stuff all the time like they're running even better than PCs.
Mhm.
They are the epitome of gaming right now.
Yeah,
Like it's like, oh
yeah,
cool. And
I,
it's
yeah. So
that's what I'm saying like we had higher expectations because of everything presented.
yeah. So as you want to wrap things up, but before we do, just read off from Zombie real quick. I heard Redfall was very bad. It was.
Mm.
Apparently, you have to play the game twice just to do co-op. I really hope that's not the case. Me personally,
I
I
yeah, I
wonder
don't know, not either.
when they'll abandon PS4. They gotta eventually. I think PS4 is near the tail end since PS5s are becoming more accessible. I'm wanting Halo Infinite with my Series X. If you have not played the original Halos, I recommend starting with the Master Chief Collection. You know,
Which is available on the Game Pass.
mm-hmm. And the worst generation to me was 360 PS3, but that's my opinion. 360 was a golden era of Xbox. PS3 was very bad for Sony until the very end, which led down
Mm.
to being phenomenal within the PS4 era. But all right, so I think we said what we had to say.
I don't
Um,
know.
so if you guys agree or disagree with us, let us know down in the comments. Make sure you follow all of our social media pages. All links down below. You can follow us at Dooless Chat on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Am I missing anything?
Instagram, Twitter, Twitch,
Oh, not
TikTok.
no, no. You're doing Twitch,
Oh no, no, not Twitter. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok,
YouTube,
all your
because
podcasting platforms.
yeah, links will be down below. Links will be down below. What else? Make sure if you like the content, leave a like. And if you want to catch us live or see any new recent uploads, make sure you subscribe and ring the notification bell. That way you know when we do go live or upload anything. But I think that's it for now. We got some more ideas down the pipeline where we're gonna get down to, and it'll be a good time. It'll be a good time. But and juice,
Look forward to that announcement as it's going to be coming out with some of the things we're going to be doing, guys. And follow our social medias. We haven't been as active, but we're jumping right back into it now that school is over for some. Work is starting to slow down a bit more for others. So look
juice,
forward to that. Thank y'all so much for coming by. You
close
know
us
what I
out,
say,
baby.
baby. Stay happy, stay healthy, and stay beautiful.